everyone. Today I'm here with disability advocate, legal intern, and final year law student, Joseph Popov. We'll be talking all about his career journey so far and discussing the experience he's had with employment and education. Thanks for joining us and volunteering to share your story, Joseph.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me along.
No, not a problem at all. It's going to be my pleasure, I'm sure. So we'll start off with the questions, I guess. First one up, what do you do for work now?
So I have a paid job where I work 2 days a week at a employment law and human resource management consulting firm. It it, it was called Ansen Consulting, but it's now going through a rebranding process, and it's going to be called Ignite. And my role in that firm is as a legal intern, so I help my boss with um with the legal matters, and then I also delve into the HR policies, procedures, and I also write blogs for the blogs for legal updates, relevant award updates, and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, so it sounds like you've got a fairly varied set of job duties there. What does an average workday look like for you?
Well, to be honest, I only about 2 days there because I'm busy with full-time uni, and I also volunteer disability advocacy New South Wales and Community Disability Alliance Hunter. So average workday with cabinet and consulting, it's predominantly working from home, and and um and just we have sort of a weekly meeting catch up. I sort of I sort of catch up with my boss every day that I'm working, just to see if there's any updates with the legal matters, or with, with colleagues if they need any help with HR stuff. And if not, I just get I just I I mainly see on the latest news in relation to employment law, and look at cases, legal changes, get started writing blogs on those.
Oh, awesome, awesome. So yeah, a little bit of I guess you could say an amateur journalist in that side of things as well.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, there to say, helping my boss with drafting the legal documents and reviewing the legal matters, um, helping draft what HR policies and documents, and then yeah, yeah, blogging. So yeah, jack of all trades, I guess.
Yeah, sounds like it wouldn't be too boring. You keep yourself busy
Oh,
there.
yeah, keep myself busy. Yeah.
So, do you reckon you could tell us the story of your career journey so far? What's brought you to where you are now?
I'll talk through my education really, that's okay, because
Yeah.
that sort of into my career journey. So I went to mainstream primary school, mainstream high school, my local primary and high school. Got accepted straight into law at the University of Newcastle. I'm completing my HSC. Um, Swapped and changed degrees 3 to 4 times. Um, I I was starting. I knew I always wanted to work post schooling, but I struggled to find work because, most of the jobs that were school leavers were retail hospitality and as a person with a physical disability wheelchair, I couldn't really do those. I could do the more office professional based jobs. And from my experience, um, that they often require you to at least be halfway in your degree, and so I wasn't at that point ready. And so yeah, and but I got my first job um at the University of Newcastle, where I was a blogger. I wrote a blog for the University of Newcastle's Navigator for nearly 2 years. That was from 2017. I finished about starting March 2017, finished that job 2018, end of 2018. Um, and then um, so I was doing a Bachelor of Business and Law at the time I started that job. Then I transitioned to Bachelor of Laws and Social Science, majoring in Community Welfare and Human Services. Um, Loved that. So then 2018, I started. Actually, 2018, I wanted to volunteer at Disability Advocacy New South Wales. So it was sort of like a stepping stone to paid employment. It's where I am with the legal analysis and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, still volunteering. I've been there 4 years. Um, I've also been doing intermittent work with community disability alliance Hunter. Um, got awarded a Hunter Water scholarship, and as part of that scholarship, I did some paid placement at Hunter Water in human resource department and the legal department, and then and then once I finished my blog job in 2018, I continued volunteering more so with disability advocacy and community disability alliance Hunter. And I knew I wanted to get into paid employment. It was just more the jobs available. And then I just just over a year ago, um a friend of mine got in touch with Karen Ansen from consulting, and they knew each other, and they were looking for a law student, preferably someone with a disability, and then just I've been with them since then, and that's my job at the moment.
Yeah, it's quite interesting hearing the whole story from start to finish. Yeah, like I said before, being like a little bit of an amateur journalist, I think you're edging more on the professional side of things if you've been writing those blogs for that long.
Yeah, yeah.
So, out of all of those, what's been your least and most favorite job?
Mm. This favorite, I think, would have been the blog writing job. It's not because I didn't like it. I liked it, and good team, good people, good organisation. It just it just wasn't where I saw myself go professionally and career. And it was like 4 hours a fortnight just writing a blog and working from home with no real face to face contact. There was an occasional face-to-face contact, and there was a monthly meeting, but it wasn't, the same social environment that I like with get with the job. So I think that was my least favorite, but I still enjoyed it. But it's, you know what I mean.
Yeah, it wasn't
I
really a
enjoyed it,
passion.
but yeah, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my passion and where I wanted to go. So that's probably been my least favorite. But just because it's my least favorite doesn't mean that I didn't like it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like yeah, you've been pretty blessed with the jobs that you've had got. Then,
Yeah,
yeah, there's definitely some people out there that have had jobs that they absolutely hated. So, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
good for you. And what would be the most favorite job you've done so far?
So my favorite job I think would be with Ansen Consulting soon to be not that's the current job I'm in. Um yeah, it's just very versatile. Yeah, and yeah, it's just very versatile in the role and got a great team. We have weekly catch up and then we catch up for we try and because we work from home in that job. We try and catch up in person at least once a month and go to events and all that sort of stuff. We've done that. So I really enjoyed the job.
Nice. I think there, like what we were discussing before, it's really varied the different job duties. So no
Yeah,
2 days is the
yeah.
same. And so, like, yeah, what do you enjoy most about the work you do now with Karen Ansen Consulting, soon to be Ignite?
Um, bit of everything. Like I enjoy helping Karen, my boss, with all the legal matters. You know, helping problem solve, distinguish the facts, the legal arguments that can be done, drafting the documents, the necessary legal documents. I enjoy that. Um, but I also enjoy HR stuff and and blogs, especially in relation to disability and awards and employment and and to be honest, this um what I am starting to enjoy now because I've start I'm more than halfway through a postgraduate a graduate certificate in workforce diversity and inclusion, and my boss um is really good in that. Um, it's what you can bring as well as what they offer. So just it's not it's not concrete yet, but just getting the ball rolling on what we can do in the workforce diversity space. It's it's still the starting point, but it's slowly moving. Yeah, so it's just being good in that space too.
It sounds like yeah, pretty exciting stuff. Like yeah, you're actually making some big moves there, or there's possibly some big changes in the works. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you have anyone who inspires or has inspired you in your career?
Not really that I can think of. I just think because when it comes to people with disabilities in employment, I've come up with this motto and it stuck with me. And it's like um no one is 100% capable of doing their job. So why further discriminate against people with disabilities? And that's just something I made up. And I don't necessarily have inspiration, but there are people that I do look up to, who've had have had successful careers as persons with a lived disability. I think filling out Kurt Burnley and some other people that I know locally, in locally with the disability who in the you know yeah, who've persevered and just yeah made the changes to get to where they are.
Cool. I would love to get Kurt Fernley on here at one point, but I don't know. He's a busy man. I don't know if I'm ever going to be that lucky, but we'll see. We'll see.
Uh, uh,
So, have you ever experienced any barriers to gaining employment in the past because of disability?
yes. Um. So my disability is physical. So I'm in a wheelchair, and the barriers I faced were both, I think, structural in terms of the physical environment and attitudinal in terms of attitudes in I think so I won't name the organization or stuff, but so the very first job I applied for, I um it was just before I got this blogging job at the uni. I applied for a job, and as part of the job, you had to attend a workshop before you do the cover letter and selection criteria and all that sort of stuff. And it was in an organization that you would expect to be, inclusive and accessible of people of different backgrounds. But where the workshop meeting was held, it was in a place that was inaccessible for me to get into. And then on top of that, um, so I was waiting, got in contact with the person who coordinated the workshop. They they explicitly said they were going to make a time to catch up with me to discuss the material because it wasn't recorded or anything. I sent an email to them, I think the following day, never got back. Sent a follow up email, I think for over probably about 20 weeks. Never heard back from them. But that was a bit disheartening. So obviously I didn't get to that stage. And then there was an organization, a legal firm that I wanted to volunteer for just to get the stepping stone in the legal door. This was about, I think, about 4 years ago now. And because when I go into these places, if on the website it says, that they were accessible for people with disabilities, that they, it's open to people with disabilities, I generally try and go in by myself without a support worker, or because most of the time I don't need support worker when I'm at work. And so I went into the building. Now, the building was on the first story, um, where the um, where the organization was. So it was on the first story of the building. I To get into the building, you had to open a door, and this door had no button to open. You had to physically open it yourself, and there was no intercom mechanism, so you couldn't like inform people, you know, like if as a person with a disability coming with a legal problem, and this organization says, that people with disabilities are welcome, etc. You would expect, that they would have addressed some of those structural barriers. And so when in the lift, from the lift in the first floor to the organization, there was another door, and this door also wasn't automated or no intercom, and I had to knock, wait for about 5 minutes, got in, and and the most and they did seem interested, but they did acknowledge that it probably wasn't gonna work for me because the office space was also really small. So it's yes, they welcome clients with people disabilities, but when it comes to people in bigger wheelchairs, trying to work for organizations like that, it's just a bit difficult. So it's that structural barrier as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so, with that last example that you used, why do you think that that barrier occurred? Like, why would they list it on their website as being accessible, but then not really have it accessible? Do you think that's just through ignorance?
I, yeah, I think mixture of ignorance, and I think mixture ignorance, not so much on, well, partly ignorance, but also because they don't own the building, they have to go to a landlord, and the landlord has to go through modification. So it's both ignorance and the time consuming, and just that how to make the adjustment with the landlord and everything. That's another thing in itself.
Okay. And so, are there any challenges that you've faced while you've been at work because of disability?
Also, because I'm in, because as well as in a wheelchair, I'm also hearing impaired. I've got a cochlear implant, and so some of the legal interviews that I've been involved with have been through the phone, and it's difficult for me to hear on the phone. I prefer video conference because it's sort of like I can lip read, and B, I can also in my experience the sound quality is better on computer than it is on the phone. But that's just me.
Okay, interesting. Um, so, do you think your disability has helped you throughout your career at all?
Yes, I think yes. Um not so I think it helped me in numerous ways. So it's helped me realize my passion is improving disability rights. So looking for like-minded organisations, and they've been accommodating with because as well as because career, I also like to think volunteering as a you know avenue for career, because as well as paid work, I also volunteer. So it's sort of like, it's that good resume, that you can put down as part of your career. And I think, yeah, it's been very accommodating. And I think with my job, I didn't get it because of my disability, but um, it was one of the things that the organization wanted lived experience of people with disabilities, because um, a lot of the HR stuff that Codex and Ignite does, it's in the disability service provider or aged care service provider. So they wanted, someone, it wasn't a necessity, but it would have been preferable to have someone, with that lived experience, so that, they can challenge some of the practices.
Well, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you have a unique perspective in that sort of
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. And so, if you had to, I guess, give some advice to a recruiter, what's one thing you would tell a recruiter to make the application and hiring process fairer for everyone?
everyone or mainly for people with disabilities because, of my lived experience?
Yeah, yeah, you can answer that however you like.
Uh, um, I think uh, not so much fair. Um, well, it's a twofold thing. So, in relation to the recruit, in relation to the job application, um, an explicit statement highlighting that, people with disabilities, Indigenous Australian women are, recommended or are encouraged to apply for this role, to actually show that they're willing to accept people from a diverse background. And then when it comes to the hiring, the interview process, I think I try not to be judgmental in terms of the capabilities of people with disabilities because sometimes, well, in both my work and volunteer, I do not really need any adjustments aside from a laptop. So it's like, you know, yeah, I think just ask if you need adjustments and preferably um preferably have a person with lived experience on an interview panel, who works for the organization. If they do disclose disability, gender identity, Aboriginal, women, all that sort of stuff.
Uh, yeah, particularly like that last answer of just like if someone has disclosed anything like that, to have someone on the panel with that lived experience is yeah, something I hadn't thought about specifically before, but would be really valuable.
Mm.
So, if you could tell employers wanting to promote an inclusive workplace one thing, what would that be?
One thing that's tricky because, as I said, I'm studying graduate certificate in workforce diversity and inclusion. So I've got all these multiple things in my head, and it's hard to pinpoint one thing.
Well, yeah,
Um,
if you like, you can do multiple. I'll yeah, make it easy
I,
for you. Tell me as much as you like.
so I think from lived experience, people with disabilities tailoring in that way. So it's fascinating because, and don't get me wrong, there is no right or wrong answer. Um, I've been looking at the Australian Human Rights Commission complaint data in terms of employment, and interestingly, in relation to sexual discrimination and sexual harassment and gender, discrimination and sexual orientation identity in the workforce. And when you compare that with the number of complaints made in relation to disability, um, percentage wise, yes, um, discrimination in relation to gender is higher, but the raw numbers themselves, it's only about 40 complaints different. So people with disabilities complain, to think about 307 times in the last financial year in relation to spirit, and I think gender was about 350. And so it's like, I think less focus on gender equality, but focus on other areas of diversity, especially not limited to people with disabilities, because 20% of Australians identify as having a disability. And then on top of that, statistically, over a 30-year period, the employment of people with disabilities has also declined. And I think one of the mechanisms that employers can actually do to help improve disability employment is actually lodging a disability action plan with the Australian Human Rights Commission to show their planned commitment to helping people with disabilities not only as consumers or customers, but also as potential employees of the organization in question.
Very nice. It's actually, yeah, fantastic. Just with your background in education and whatnot, you're extremely
Really?
knowledgeable on all this sort of stuff. It's fascinating to hear your answers to them.
Yeah.
So, as the sort of final question here, do you have any advice for anyone with disability out there who might be having a tough time with employment or finding work experience, things like that at the moment?
Yeah. What I'm gonna say is you are not alone. I struggled for 3 to 4 years after finishing school finding work. And um I did persevere, networking with potential employees of organizations is crucial because pretty much all of the jobs I've gotten have been through networking. And I don't know if that's something that you think is important as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's sometimes I'll refer to it as kind of like going in the back door, but like not sort of waiting for a job to come up and be advertised somewhere, but actually just networking with different people and yeah,
Yeah,
expanding those networks and hearing about potential roles through word of mouth, like
yeah,
yourself with Karen Ansen Ignite.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right, excellent. Well, I think we can leave it there for today. If anyone at home is an NDIS participant looking to engage with employment in the Newcastle, Hunter, or Lake Macquarie region, then get in touch with Social Model and yeah, see how we might be able to assist you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we finished up, Joseph?
no, all good.
No worries. Well, yeah, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to have a chat with you about employment, Joseph. It's yeah, been an absolute pleasure connecting and getting to know you better.